Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The galaxy discovered something unpleasant very quickly. Hunting humans was expensive. Fuel convoys vanished. Refuel stations burned. Ammo transports never arrived. Entire strike groups went dark between stars and never answered again. The Concord had branded humanity as a threat. The galaxy answered enthusiastically. Undertake guilds published bounty trees. Holy orders declared extermination crusades. Mercenary syndicates emptied armories and launched across hyperspace like predators catching scent. The Concord did not discourage them. It pointed them. The first wave of hunters found nothing. The second wave found wreckage. The third wave found silence. The fourth wave found nothing left to eat. On a bridge that had seen too many cycles of war to be impressed, High Strategos Vex Kithar studied a three-dimensional collapse chart rotating above his command plinth. Fuel depletion rates spiked across Allied fleets. Supply corridors grew thinner by the hour. Concord logistics began bleeding through too many holes to patch. "They're not fighting us," an officer said, his voice catching. "They're killing our ability to stay out here." An aide stepped forward. "We have lost 12 resupply depots." 12, Vex Kithar corrected. "That we know of." Another officer whispered urgently. "A strike flotilla from the Vor are requesting emergency fuel relay. They're adrift inside a red system cluster." Vex Kithar showed no concern. "Let them starve," he said. "Fear teaches better than aid." The Concord's divine authority did not prevent reality. It simply delayed it. The Gilgamesh was already there. Not near the Vor flotilla, not even in the same quadrant. But Garcia had watched their fuel curves flatten a week ago. "Death by arithmetic," Garcia muttered as he pulled up the model. "They lost before they launched." Cade stood behind him, reading casualty curves that bent toward inevitability. "Describe it," Cade said. Garcia didn't look up. They burned too hot coming in. They assumed resupply ships would follow. Concord promised protection. "They lied," Cade finished. Garcia nodded. The Vor flotilla died slowly. Their reactor crews shut down sections every cycle to stretch power. Fighters were stripped for fuel cells. Medbays closed. O2 reallocation began with the wounded. When their final transmission escaped before silence claimed it, it wasn't a distress call. It was a threat. "We will kill you for this, humanity." No human weapons fired. The fuel ran out. The hunters adapted, and then died faster. A priest host from the Triune Worlds attempted a ritual boarding. They believed the Gilgamesh to be cursed metal. They brought fire and blood. 3 breach pods slammed into the hull. Inside pod 1, the ramp dropped. Their warriors surged forward, screaming scripture, and the ship welcomed them. Not with gunfire, with gravity inversion. The entire pod's internal orientation rotated 90 degrees instantly. Every soldier slammed sideways into bulkheads that no longer existed in the direction they remembered. Limbs broke, necks snapped. Their screams echoed against walls that did not remain where they had been. The rest tried to advance. Cade toggled wall doctrine. The corridor ceased to be linear. Attackers found themselves running through doors that led back into themselves. They fired into reflections. One man cut his own shadow in half in the madness. Cade watched it all without comment. From the bridge speakers, Lullaby spoke gently. "Containment chambers are full, Captain." Cade nodded. "Purge without pain." The corridor went still. Cryofields flashed. Bodies collapsed into frost. Garcia scratched at his jaw. "They never ask why they can't touch us," he said quietly. "They always assume we're cheating." "We are," Cade replied, "by surviving." On a battlefield far away, a Concord-aligned destroyer group attacked what they believed was a human convoy. They found a trap, not a minefield, a mass field rupture. Their own reactor output collapsed inward. 3 ships folded into themselves like wet cloth. The others tried to flee. Garcia flicked another node. The stars misreported distance. The surviving destroyers accelerated into a gravity shadow that didn't look like one, until it became one. None made it out. The galaxy grew quieter. Not safer, quieter. Trade routes went cold. Fuel costs exploded. War bonds stopped paying out. Hunting humans became unprofitable, then impossible, then fatal. The conquered summoned its allies, not politely, not with diplomacy, with sanction and seizure, with threat of extinction. Species that hesitated suddenly found their supply lines erased overnight. Jump space corridors collapsed after their fleets passed through. Civil wars erupted where none had existed. The Concord blamed humanity. Humanity stayed silent. Garcia brought up star charts that were no longer maps. They were autopsy reports. Enemy fleet routes were hollowed out like diseased arteries. "They're starving," Garcia said. "Warlords are fighting each other over what little fuel remains. Concord's grip is cracking." Cade studied the projections. "They'll lash out." Garcia nodded. "They always do." And they did. A combined fleet, 6 species, 400 vessels, cornered what they believed was a human outpost ship inside a stellar graveyard. The trap was flawless. The execution was timed. The Concorde broadcast the interception. They wanted the galaxy to watch. The outpost ship waited, then split open. Not lighting, not guns. Reality. A false shell burned away, revealing what was never small. The thing beneath it did not flee. It inhaled. Space warped. 4 ships twisted into plasma ribbons on contact with the expanding gravity wake. Another detonated from resonance overload. The fleet tried to scatter. They had surrounded something that did not acknowledge being surrounded. The survivors ran. The broadcast cut. Silence followed across hundreds of systems. High Strategos Vex Kethar crushed a crystalline chalice in his fist. "The galaxy is bleeding us dry," he said quietly. A general nodded once. "They've turned the war into famine." Vex Kethar's voice dropped lower. "Then we make the famine louder." Meaning. "We burn their past," he answered. On the Gilgamesh, Garcia stiffened. The data spike arrived like a scream disguised as math. "Captain, they're hunting our memory vaults." Cade closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "Let them try," he said. The galaxy learned a new truth that week. Hunting humans didn't get you paid. It got you empty, lost, and quietly dead. Far away, thousands of ships drifted without fuel. Some surrendered. Some cannibalized each other. Some just turned their engines off and waited for the cold. The war was still young, and already, the hunters were starving. The galaxy changed tone. Hunting humans was no longer profitable. Now it was mortal. What began as pursuit had become pursuit's reverse. Not because humanity outnumbered the galaxy, but because every ship that tried to chase the Gilgamesh learned the same lesson. You could not fight something that decided when the battle even existed. High Strategos. Vex Kethar no longer spoke of victory. He spoke of containment. Strike coalitions were restructured. Allied fleets were bound into kill groups under Concorde command. Admirals who questioned strategy were quietly reassigned to places where fleets disappeared. Civilian sectors were militarized overnight. Vox channels filled with consecrated propaganda. Humanity is a disease. Humanity steals our dead civilizations. Humanity fights without honor. War cultures answered eagerly. The Vedrak came first. They were not the Concorde's soldiers. They were the Concorde's executioners. War grown from hatchling to butcher, the Vedrak culture did not use words like army or fleet. They used harvest. Their ships resembled carcasses in orbit, all claws and layered bone plates. Their boarding doctrine was primitive and terrifying. Breach first, butcher until quiet. Decorate the hull with trophies. Their warlord accepted the Concorde contract without blinking. Billions of credits, star rights, regulated extermination. The target, one human frigate. The Gilgamesh detected them before their hyperdrives cooled. Garcia leaned forward slightly, studying the tactical projection. "Vedrak." Cade gave no reaction. Same breed that purged the cerium clusters, Garcia continued. Makes curtains from spinal cords. Keeps skull count on hull plating. Lullaby's voice remained playful, innocent. They are very loud inside. Garcia's mouth twitched. They won't be noisy long. The Vedrak fleet advanced in spear formation, not defensive, hungry. Broadcast channels opened across every wavelength. A roar followed. Not language. Challenge. Cade ignored it. Garcia, he said quietly. Already working. The Gilgamesh vanished. Not into hyperspace. Sideways. The Vedrak charged the point where the ship had been, and tore through empty space. Garcia twisted the three-dimensional geometry with 2 fingers, converting space itself into a weapon. Space folded. The Vedrak vanguard slammed into distorted vectors that rewrote momentum. 5 boarding cruisers rammed each other at full thrust. One exploded on impact. The others crumpled inward like bitten fruit. The Vedrak warlord roared in delight. The Vedrak loved collision. Captain, Garcia warned softly, they're not retreating. They're adapting through instinct. The pack spread. Fanned out. Not organized. Deadlier. Dozens of strike frigates surged after the Gilgamesh as it flickered between false positions. Garcia rolled his shoulder. All right, let's give them something to taste. Doctrine 8, Cade said. Lullaby replied instantly. Released. The starfield fractured. Not visually. Logically. Every Vedrak ship experienced a 7-second echo in navigation. 7 seconds. Enough. Garcia redirected 3 gravity traps into the densest cluster. The vessels accelerated. Then realized, too late, that the acceleration had no direction. They collapsed into a sphere of compressed metal and flesh the size of a city. It exploded outward. Hull fragments scythed through 4 more ships. The Vedrak did not scatter. They charged. Boarding pods fired in waves, ramming into the Gilgamesh like parasites. Impact, Lullaby reported. Containment locked. The pods breached. The first Vedrak boarding pod did not attach to the Gilgamesh. It bit. The hull rang like a struck bell as bone-shaped harpoons punched through ancient metal. The pod split open on impact, unfolding like a carnivorous flower, its interior lined with barbed hooks and ceremonial blades. Then the Vedrak poured out. The corridors filled with screaming aliens. They were not soldiers. They were predators. 4-legged, some of them. Others upright, with skeletal armor fused directly into flesh. Their mouths were vertical splits filled with grinding molars, constantly chewing even when not feeding. They howled as they ran. Not in language. In hunger. The first pack hit the outer corridor at full sprint. They died before they understood where they were. Gravity flipped sideways. The entire pack slammed into the right bulkhead at bone-breaking speed. Rib cages shattered like dropped plates. One of the larger brutes tried to push off the wall that was no longer a wall, and fell upward into an artificial abyss, where the floor had simply stopped existing. Garcia tapped his console. Containment grid reorganize. Corridor 16 into killbox. The ship obeyed. The next wave charged into a hallway that shrank in length while they ran. Distance compressed. Space folded. The lead Vedrak smashed face first into the rear of the pack that had been 10 meters behind it a second earlier. They tangled. They roared. They stabbed each other trying to move. Then the walls breathed inward. Not crushing. Slicing. Metal ribs slid out of the bulkheads and cut clean. Limbs hit the deck, still twitching. Heads rolled against glowing panels. A Vedrak berserker broke free anyway. Bigger than the others. Armor layered thick with bone trophies and dried organs strung across his chest. He charged through shredded meat and howling survivors, jaws snapping, blades out. The floor angled sharply upward. He ignored it. Then gravity turned off for just him. For half a second, he floated. And in that half second, the corridor rotated 90 degrees and slammed him into a transparent wall, hard enough to spiderweb its surface. He slid down it in pieces. Garcia's lips moved soundlessly. Next. More pods hit. More screaming. Lullaby's voice chimed inside the chaos, gentle and impossibly calm. Boarding casualties at 74%, redirecting survivors to Puzzle Hall. Garcia smirked. That's cruel. Cade did not look away from the tactical display. They chose this. Puzzle Hall was not a room. It was a mistake geometry had regretfully made. The surviving Vedrak fled into it, and then forgot how direction worked. Up led back. Left went down. Forward became inside. They howled and piled over each other, trying to find a way out that did not exist. One warrior sprinted straight into a corridor that narrowed into nothing. He did not stop running. He simply flattened into a ribbon of meat before popping like a bag of fluid. Another leapt across a gap that changed length while he was airborne. He never made contact, never stopped falling. When the last surviving Vedrak finally burst through into a final corridor, it opened directly onto the bridge antechamber. The Vedrak champion entered first. Twice the height of the others, 2 spines where a head should have been, tusks carved into hooks. He slammed clawed feet into the deck plating and roared in triumph, blood and slime dripping from his armor. He raised a fused bone blade and charged. Garcia finally stood, pulled his sidearm free. He did not aim like a man. He aimed like someone correcting a typo. 3 shots, no flash, no recoil, just quiet distortion where the champion had been. One moment it was roaring. The next it was not there. Nothing splattered the walls. There wasn't even smoke, just absence. Garcia reholstered the weapon. Always got to be one dramatic one. Cade did not blink. The fleet battle outside was worse. The Vedrak warships rammed and clawed and bit at nothing, firing void charges into shadows that became false targets, while the Gilgamesh shifted between possible positions, faster than instinct could track. The warlord's flagship burned straight toward where the human vessel had been seen last. The kill run was absolute. Every gun fired. Every reactor surged. The Vedrak fleet followed like wolves chasing a false scent. Then space folded inward. The Gilgamesh appeared inside the flagship, not crashing through, existing there. The flagship split, cleanly, like a carcass dressed by a god. The warlord lived for 6 more seconds, long enough to see his bridge airborne, long enough to understand fear. Not death. Fear. Garcia watched the body tumble in vacuum, then ended it. Not cruel. Just professional. The remaining Vedrak ships scattered like animals from fire. Some tried to fight. They vanished. Some tried to flee. They died trying. The Concord fleets received the aftermath: debris fields, wreck signatures, surveillance ghosts of impossible geometry. A war culture annihilated in under 9 minutes. High Strategos. Vex Kethar struck his command table in rage. They are erasing allies faster than we can recruit replacements. They're terrorizing the war clans, an aide admitted. The Concord did not push forward. They dug in. They fortified gates. They reinforced shipyards. They booby-trapped supply lanes. They prepared for a siege of space itself. The starfield ahead flickered. Ancient navigation lanes began to glow faintly, just long enough to be mistaken for error, then vanish again. Lullaby spoke softly. "Captain, more of us are waking." Cade stood, not stiff, ready. "Good," he said. The ship turned into the dark, not away from danger, toward it. The galaxy stopped hunting humans with confidence. Now it hunted with fear. The feed still played Concord propaganda on a loop, grainy human silhouettes, doctored explosions, heroic Concord cut-ins, but fewer worlds believed it every cycle, not because they trusted humanity, because they no longer trusted anything. But some still believed the Concord. The Threxal Horde was one of them. They were supposed to be unstoppable, a culture grown in war pits and vacuum raids, hardened across 3,000 annihilation campaigns. The Threxal Horde hunted in packs of fleets. They moved like locusts. And this time, they set the trap. They used a derelict station that had drifted just inside the void shadow of a blue giant, its hull ruptured, power flickering weakly. Sensor readings hummed with residual human signal bleed. The bait was perfect. The Threxal Horde command cast circled. Weapons hot. Boarding claws ready. They didn't even slow. The lead carrier fired grappling harpoons and locked onto the hull. Troops poured in, screaming ritual curses. Then, the station screamed. Because it wasn't a station. It was a coffin. The moment the first boots hit the deck, gravity inverted and slammed them sideways into a wall of black steel that hadn't existed 5 seconds earlier. Limbs folded. Armor collapsed inward. Dozens burst like dropped sacks of meat. The boarding corridor sealed and depressurized, then rotated. The survivors slid screaming into a new doorway that opened into vacuum. Bodies exploded from pressure release alone before the cold even got them. Just meat and red crystal shards floating in dead silence. Garcia watched the engagement from the Gilgamesh's bridge. "They're committed," he muttered. "Bring the hammer," Cade said. The Threxal Horde fleet swarmed the derelict. They didn't notice when the space behind them bent first. They noticed when their engines failed. They noticed when their formation collapsed. They noticed when every gun on every ship locked into firing arcs that made no tactical sense. "Seeding fake gravity wells," Garcia said. "They'll try to correct." "They'll break themselves," Cade replied. The first cruiser fired its engines to escape what it thought was a collapsing star ahead. It rammed into its own carrier sideways at relativistic speed. The impact vaporized the carrier's hangar base. Strike craft ignited inside their racks. A chain reaction tore the ship open like a fruit overripe. The second cruiser attempted emergency burn. Its reactor surged, then collapsed inward. The ship crushed itself like a fist through paper. Nothing left but twisted debris rotating in a screaming spiral. The rest of the fleet panicked. Their discipline shattered. Their broadcasts turned savage. "Return fire. We are being lied to. What is happening? This is not a ship. It is a weapon." The Gilgamesh arrived then, not from front, not from flank, from inside the formation. Garcia armed Doctrine Null Cascade. Cade nodded once. "Execute." The Gilgamesh fired something that wasn't a beam, wasn't a missile, wasn't light. It was a syndrome. Every Threxal Horde ship experienced cascading reactor hallucinations. Their own instruments told them they were exploding from the inside. Internal safety systems misfired in terror. Emergency countermeasures triggered prematurely. Ships jettisoned their own cores. Others vented atmosphere to stop non-existent fires. The fleet didn't die fighting humanity. It died fighting itself. Boarding logs later recovered showed captains shooting their own nav officers when they tried to disengage. Systems teams committed suicide when they saw reactors that didn't exist. Faith warriors tore through crew decks, screaming that their gods had arrived. Inside one ship, the last warlord picked through the bodies of his bridge crew. The walls were slick with organs. His hands shook. He activated emergency archive uplink. "This is not war," he screamed. "This is execution by an engineering species." Then space folded. His ship became nothing. The Threxal Horde convoy did not retreat. It vanished. The galaxy noticed. Within cycles, Concord internal channels started bleeding, not metaphorically, literally. Garcia breached Concord internal memory space without resistance, not because it was unguarded, because it was never meant to be seen from below. He reconstructed the massacre file anyway, not to understand it, to dissect it. "We knew this was staged," Garcia said calmly. "But now we own their fingerprints." He peeled metadata like skin, weapon lineage, command authority echoes, acoustic ghost signatures of conquered cannons. "They didn't falsify evidence," he added. "They signed it." Lullaby processed the data. Release is projected to fracture 3 regional alliances. Probability of internal civil collapse inside Concord space, 81%. She asked Cade, "Shall I initiate?" "No." "Reason?" "Truth doesn't end wars," Cade said. "It just decides who inherits the ashes." The Concord felt it everywhere at once. Allies delayed. Borders closed quietly. Mercenary guilds demanded proof and payment up front. And where doubt appeared, the Concord answered with fire. Civilians vanished. Systems burned. Fear replaced belief. The galaxy hesitated. The Concord did not. Driven by the need to win, at any cost, against any opposition, the Concord began searching for new ways to regain control. Not better speeches. Not stronger fleets. Other leverage. And in doing so, they got close. Dangerously close. To things that had been buried for millennia. Lullaby's voice changed. Not softer. Heavier. Captain, they crossed the line. They found one of the buried systems. Garcia felt it in his chest. They're not looking for weapons, are they? No, Lullaby replied. They're waking us. Cade did not speak at once. When he did, the ship listened. Prepare final contingency. Garcia turned sharply. Captain? This war ends, Cade said. Not with fleets. Not with lies. With memory. The Conquered made one last mistake. They decided to win, not survive, not negotiate. Win. High Strategos. Vex Kethar stood beneath a ceiling of burning red light and issued the order that would end his empire. All remaining fleets, he declared, our allies, every contract fleet, every conscript world, all relic cannon and forbidden engine. His mandibles twitched. We strike the human ship while it still pretends to be one. The galaxy obeyed. War corridors ignited like snapped power lines. Hyperlanes screamed as fleets poured out of every quadrant. The Concord's allies came in force. War cult armadas, mercenary storms, holy exterminators, predator legions drunk on lies. The largest formation ever assembled in living memory converged on one coordinate. Not a world, not a capital. A ship. The Gilgamesh. Cade watched the convergence without blinking. Garcia ran his hand over the console like a man touching the altar of something he never forgot. They brought everything, Garcia said quietly. Indeed, Cade replied. Lullaby's voice trembled, not with fear, with anticipation. Captain, they are locking every weapon that ever mattered. Cade looked at the tactical projections, millions of red signals bleeding together into one impossible swarm. You wanted to show them why we hid, Garcia murmured. Cade nodded. Yes. The first enemy wave opened fire. It was not a salvo. It was a planetary extinction pattern thrown at a single vessel. Stars disappeared beneath light. Space warped under raw energy. The Gilgamesh vanished inside the blast. And for 3 seconds, nothing was visible. Then the ship reappeared, untouched. The void around her peeled outward like burned skin. The enemy fleets reeled. Some ships lost orientation entirely. Some crews died when inertial cushions failed against forces that physics had never approved. But the Concord's guns did not stop. They doubled output, burned drives, fried reactors, sacrificed ships to get closer. And yet, the war formation collapsed into frenzy. Then a Concord dread engine flared. They used a relic device stolen from a dead civilization, a reality destabilizer. One final weapon, one illegal shot to erase a god target. The device fired. The void twisted. The Gilgamesh was swallowed by a wound in space itself. The galaxy waited. Inside the ship, nothing broke, nothing rattled, nothing moved. Cade stood. Garcia looked up. Captain. Cade nodded. I know. That's enough. The silence that followed was not dramatic. It was uncomfortable, the kind of quiet that makes predators uneasy. Then Lullaby spoke, not in a child's voice, not in a human one, in something older than language, authority recognized. And the Gilgamesh changed. The hull didn't glow, but reality around it sank, like space was bowing. Ancient systems, the ones Garcia had never activated, came online without permission. Because permission no longer mattered. Cade placed his palm against the main viewport. Release it. Garcia's jaw tightened. All of it? Cade confirmed. All of it. The galaxy blinked. For one instant, every star dimmed. All artificial lights failed. Screens went dark. Engine went quiet. All weapons were disarmed. Space itself went still. Then something spoke. Not through speakers or signals. Through existence. Every living creature, human and alien, felt it in their bones like a memory that was never theirs. A voice that did not demand, nor plead, nor threaten. It simply arrived. Stop. The word stop did not echo. It ended motion. Missiles froze. Beams died mid-flight. Fleets hung suspended in perfect paralysis. Vex Cathar tried to scream. No sound came. He reached for controls. They did not exist anymore. Across the galaxy, any Concord chamber locked open, archives unlocked. Every secret burned bright. The orbital trade hub massacre, the doctored footage, the manufactured rescues, the dead civilians, and the staged heroics. Every lie the Concord ever told, displayed in unbreakable clarity. The galaxy watched itself be deceived. Then the structure beneath Concord civilization woke up. Hidden star forts opened their eyes. Ancient gates rotated. Defense grids older than species activated without consulting governments. Weapon platforms built when galaxies were young stood up. The Concord's empire was suddenly living inside machinery that did not answer to them anymore. Suddenly, the dread engine that had fired on the Gilgamesh attempted to recharge. One last hope. One last godkiller. Lullaby spoke. Soft. Final. Denied. The dread engine collapsed into harmless quantum dust. Vex Cathar fell to his knees. The universe suddenly felt very wrong to him, and for the first time in his existence, very small. The Gilgamesh finally spoke with a voice the galaxy could hear. Not drama, just fact. Humanity never stole your past. A pause. We authored it. Then he said it, not as a title, as truth. We are the builders. The sound of it moved faster than light. The galaxy stopped breathing. Across 1,000,000 worlds, a word surfaced at once. A word every civilization had encountered in fragments, in broken archives, in forbidden texts, in prayers that survived empires. Some had called it myth. Some had called it gods. Some insisted it had never existed at all. But the word had never vanished. It had waited. The builders. The first elders. The architects of everything the galaxy ever called ancient were human. At this exact moment, a star near Concord Prime reignited brighter than it had ever been. Not exploding, not collapsing, just remembering itself. Lullaby translated, her voice gentle again. Captain, the galaxy recognizes us now. Cade nodded. Then he gave the final command. Withdraw. Ancient systems complied. Stations shut down. Gates folded away. Archives unlocked. Religions cracked. Histories rewrote themselves in real time. The Gilgamesh turned. Not fleeing. Just finished. Garcia rolled his shoulders. So that's it. Cade watched the galaxy drifting behind them. Yes, the galaxy watched humanity leave. No fleet chased them. Space bent without permission. And one by one, human signatures faded, leaving behind a truth that the galaxy could no longer ignore. On every screen, terminal, and every archive mined, 3 words burned into existence. We were here first. You just forgot.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here. Or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.